This week in comic books in DC and in Tom King true fashion, what happens when we take a villain like the Riddler and we take his gimmick away and give him a midlife crisis and a new origin story? We'll talk about it. Over in the land of Marvel, 1 million BC. It's just garbage. Like, I can't even think of anything funny for that. It's just, oh God, so bad. I'm going to tell you why if you haven't figured it out already. And in the land of independence, we get the Frank Miller one per store ash can preview of his new comic book coming out with two stories in it. I'm super excited to have gotten this. I want to share it with you as well. We'll jump into all that and a few other comic books right after the intro. Yeah. My come and never sleep on me. Eyes on my chain, so you know I go get what you're looking at. Hey, what's going on, you wonderful weirdos? It's Pocan Joe. It's another week, which means another stack of comics that we're going to talk about. So I want to thank you for swinging by first, more than anything. Appreciate having you here. Let's jump into this week's comic books and what kind of happened. Kind of my subjective review of them, if you will. If you have any comments about any of these books I read, or if I'm missing something, definitely comment down below and let me know. Happy to take a look at it. Always happy to have a discussion. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Batman, One Bad Day, right? So we're kind of rehashing the one bad day scenario, you know, the one bad day that could change your life forever. You know, what is the emphasis of somebody's art that makes them what they are, right? And in this one, we're focusing on the Riddler. Only in this one, we're doing in Tom King fashion. We're taking away his gimmick, right? The Riddler that gets him caught every time. The big question that needs to be solved. But did they really? Normally, Tom King is kind of a hit or miss writer for me. It always seems like he kind of hangs on this trope of, you know, a male going through a midlife crisis where some past trauma has come back up and now the character has to deal with it, right? Like he did in Batman with his relationship with Catwoman, like he did in his Strange Stories, Strange Tales. And I normally don't like that, but I kind of dug this because, and the reason why, I guess I should say, is why I enjoy this, is I always wondered what it would be like if the Riddler didn't have this compulsion to constantly prove that he was the smartest person in the room. See, I don't think the Riddler ever really wanted to get caught or anything like that. I generally think of it as some sort of obsessive compulsive disorder that he has that's proof. So think of it this way: OCD sprinkled, right, with narcissistic traits. He's not narcissistic; he just has the trait of being narcissistic. That's that gets weird. DSM-5 for mental health and all that kind of explains the difference between a trait and an actual diagnosis. But I've always seen the Riddler kind of like that. And I think Tom King's kind of playing with this concept a little bit. Does the Riddler think he's truly the smartest person out there? He does now, because he's literally putting Batman into a situation where you don't get any more riddles, and if you chase me down and you mess with me, I'm just going to randomly kill somebody, which he opened up the story doing, shooting some poor guy point blank in the head. Now, with it being a first issue, is there something going on that actually where it is a giant riddle or something like that? That would be the ultimate twist in something like this. So I'll keep reading this just to see that. Even though, again, Tom King can be kind of hit or miss for me, I'm enjoying this right now. But I am curious because I've been known to read all the way up to about issue 5, 6, 5 issues into Tom King's writing. And then I'm like, oh, he just got weird. I don't want to deal with this. Also, we get a new origin story, kind of. We're playing off the same tropes, but it's a new origin story. Apparently, his mother was a hooker, and dad was the headmaster of a school who demand perfection from him. Again, that kind of, I'm a villain, but I'm a villain because of this one bad day type scenario. Now, I don't know about all that. But for the most part, the art in here is very detailed. This artist is great. I believe it's Mitch something or other. It's a beautifully drawn book, very vibrant, very colorful, just like the Riddler. So yeah, I like this. This was pretty smart. I would definitely recommend it, but I'm not saying stay in it for the long haul because I got a feeling that like there's two ways they could go with this. That's the only DC book I picked up this week. Unfortunately, by the time I got there, a lot of the DC stuff was already gone. Most of it I wasn't reading anyway. So jumping into Marvel, we get 1 million BC. This is just a mess. I don't know what Marvel is doing with this time traveling Avengers thing. Like some of the stories were pretty cool, like the soldier sorcerer supreme. Say that 5 times fast. That's a that's a tongue twister. That was a pretty cool storyline. Avengers went into the past, but now we're going back to 1 million BC and that whole scenario with Odin and his Phoenix Force. And basically, the story is just, go girl, go live your best life. She has a burning passion, right? And she doesn't want to get hooked up with Odin, even though they kind of had a relationship or one night stand at some point. But she's got to go fly and be free. And Odin's like, well, then I guess I'll get with this Gaia chick, and we'll make a baby. And of course, she comes back because drama, right? Got to come back. I don't know. And it just seems like it points out a horrible flaw relationship versus a healthy, sustainable one, right? Like, not to get all weird about relationships and stuff with you, but it just seems like that common trope with, I don't want to get tied down right now. I want to go sow my wild oats, right? And Odin's running around doing his thing because, well, he's Odin, right? And I'm not trying to say men and women should, have different, relationship standards by no means whatsoever. Uh, but I mean, his origin story and his mannerisms fall very much in line with Zeus. So there's nothing really out of character there for him. But if you don't know, the baby that gets born is Thor, and apparently the baby gets infused with some of the Phoenix Force because a battle emerges right after the birth, and of course the Phoenix Force saves the baby because she interjects herself into a relationship that she really doesn't belong in. She didn't want to have anything to do with him. Leave. I don't get why that happened in here. Um, if you like, and I was excited about this. I want to start there first because I like this whole concept of the first Avengers being during primitive man times. I liked that. I love this Ghost Rider from that rides a mammoth. I know it sounds corny and campy, but I kind of liked that. I thought that was pretty cool. The Star Band, right? But this is really just a here you go, people that are not going to read this comic book just so we can specify how different you are. That's all I got from this. And it's like they're not going to read it. This is ridiculous. I don't know, but it's a cool Scotty Young cover, and my wife collects Scotty Youngs. And the rule in this house is: you buy a comic book, you read a comic book, because that's what the words are for. And this has to stay in my house. God, see, relationships are hard. It's give and take. Okay, moving on. Ms. Marvel and Moon Knight. Hey, if you're a Kamala Khan fan, this is definitely right up your alley. If you like this whole Moon Hunter character that's kind of associated with Moon Knight now and kind of want to see what he's able to do, this book highlights that very well. And if you read the Ms. Marvel Wolverine run, this would be your continuation story for it. Kind of, she's on this hunt of who's making these little robot rats and what kind of the plot is behind all these things. Definitely catches into that, and it may be the first appearance of a villain, I believe, or cameo. I don't know what we call it anymore. There's a panel in the back with our new villain, and apparently he has a. They said it was a peacock tattoo will be the next issue, but it's like over his suit and everything. It was really weird description for the next title, and then seeing the villain in here. So I'm not really sure where they're going with that. But Moon Knight was Moon Knight, and they didn't venture too far off in any way. And Kamala Khan is consistently talking to herself throughout this, narrating her own story. Um, it was okay, kind of campy, kind of weird. Again, that's not outside of Ms. Marvel in this particular run or in the show or any other time. So if that's a thing for you, you would definitely enjoy this. I am not, unfortunately, a Kamala Khan fan. It's not really my shtick, if you will. I like a little bit more violence. I like more Moon Knight than Ms. Marvel, right? But we all have different preferences. So if you like it, definitely check it out. Next, Ultraman, the mystery of the Ultra 7, #1. So Ultraman came back out, I want to say, shortly after the lockdowns of COVID and all that stuff happened, right? That here in Virginia, that would have been about early 2020, late 2019, right around there. Launches back out, and this kind of disappeared for a while, had a couple of issues. Now they're relaunching it, but they relaunched it that you've done forgotten about Ultraman. So if you don't know about Ultraman, basically it's a kaiju type of thing. Giant robot, interdimensional duties, you have to follow the rules. Only one can be it, right? And that's where this story kind of picks up. Because somebody else from 1966 has the power Ultra, right? This is the thing that makes you into the robot thing, right? And apparently only one can be it. So this other guy who has it in current time keeps fainting, falling, and we thought it was the one from 1966 because the story narrative kind of led that, and then they twist it. No, he's actually dead. So who is this other Ultraman from the past that's here now? I don't know. A great thing kind of came up in here about societies and interjecting yourself into a society when you're not part of that society right up off in the beginning. Kind of like think of Star Trek, right? You can't interfere with, a primitive species and its development. And that conversation kind of comes up in here. I found that pretty interesting. I'm not sure where I'm at on it. I guess whatever does the most amount of good should be the rule of law. But in that case, what if all the majority of people are bad? Right? Ooh. Okay. Next, all right, in Independence, we get 20th Century Man. Now, look, this is not going to be the comic book for everybody, but this was my pick of the week. This kind of plays with an alternate history type of trope, where, but using historical accurate stuff. So, I want to take you back to the 80s, where Russia was beat-bopping around Afghanistan, right, trying to stabilize the country. You always know that something hinky's going on when they say stabilize. We're going to stabilize the country. That never works out. Usually the people there don't really like that. And this takes place in Afghanistan. And now the U.S. is going to get involved, and we did back in the day. By the way, if you don't know, you can thank the U.S. military for the Taliban, because they actually supported the Taliban to fight the Russians back in the 80s and taught them tactics, gave them equipment. Very similar to another incident that's going on today. I'm just going to let that sit for a second. Yeah. So this kind of takes place in that time only. Now we're going to interject superpowers, super tech, and things like along those lines. Most of this is just a narrative about the political status of how things are running and the decisions that are being made. Right? First issue, this is complete world building and character building. That is it at this point. But I really like this Russian character here. I like the way he thinks. I disagree with the actions in which he does them. This is interesting, and then how the U.S. is going to get involved in this, and a little surprise twist in there from the Afghanis that are going to be doing their thing. I'm trying not to spoil it because I really want you to read it, where they're going to kind of interject and say, nah, we don't need either one of you. It's kind of interesting and kind of backhanded and kind of sneaky. It's good. It's really good. And the art switches. So no matter what your favorite type of art style in a comic book is, it kind of does this thing where, and I wish more would start doing this, where when you're talking about the past, you change your artwork into something older, right? And then when you're talking about the present, you're very detailed, updated, and things are up close. I really like that. This is super cool. So yeah, definitely my pick of the week. Again, this would be completely subjective to me. But if you like alternate history and kind of playing with those kind of tropes, you may definitely want to check it out. All right, last but not least, short haul this week. Frank Miller presents #1. Right? They're selling it for $1. Comic book stores aren't. But it is what it is. And my store knows I like this kind of stuff. These one per store, ash can, preview type comic books. They're calling it an ash can. I'm not sure why. Ash can is a description of the size. But okay, we'll go with it. And what's interesting about this is first you need to know the book is done very old school. It has old school paper in it. You may remember, if you were alive back then, in the 80s, the paper almost had a velvet touch to it. Does that mean it's like a pulp? It even smells like it. It smells like newspaper. It's awesome. So I was super happy to see that. So what you're getting in here is two stories. One done by Frank Miller. And that was, of course, is Ronin Book 2. He wrote Book 1. And then you're also getting this Ancient Enemies one, which kind of plays off of, why people hate each other over a long period of time. And the wars that come out from it. The artwork, everything's very, very early 90s, 80s in it. The story writing and everything. I'm getting the feeling that these were stories that were just kind of shelved at one point. And we're bringing them back and we're making them for the group that kind of remembers those days. So definitely two interesting stories in here about Ronin and this Ancient Enemies. I enjoyed them, all in all. So what's going on in the community? So so it's been a weird week, right? If you've seen anything about Acetate Gate and the whole Black Flag and CGC and whatnot thing. So if you don't know already, and I try not to get involved in drama, but it's good to pass on information. Whatnot and CGC kind of collabed together, and a Marvel artist, Jim Lee, kind of all did an online sales of art and stuff like that together. And that they're part of that whole Black Flag and the drama that happened with the UF4 acetate. Some people are calling it Dum Dum, not my words. Somebody else, because they're referring to a lollipop. Other people are calling it a bootleg comic book. I don't really. It's a reprint as far as I'm concerned, but whatever. So they got together, and people are upset about this. They're like, "How dare those two businesses?" It's like a slap in the face. I even mentioned on Instagram, I was like, it would be an insult if it wasn't predictable, right? Drama happens. Overall thoughts of this whole situation? It's not done. Oh, it's not done. We should get the YouTube apology from Black Flag any day now. If you don't know what the YouTube apology is, you've seen a YouTube apology before. They're all the same. There's the somber face, right? And then there's the pause and the head nod. And then there's the choke back the tears. And then there's the present your view of it. So you didn't actually say sorry. We should be getting that any day now. Oh, God, I can't wait for that one to happen, because that's just going to open up a whole nother. People are going to, it's going to be bad. It's going to be great. I don't know. I'm over here eating Cheetos, watching it, and enjoying it. All right, guys, that's my haul for this week. What did you think? What did you get? Definitely let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.